and welcome to GameSack. Retro gaming is amazing, isn't it? Who thought that after all of these years, people would still be making amazing products for these old platforms? Apparently it's quite viable. And I've got a few things to show you today. This first one is really awesome. Once it's set up. It's not exactly plug and play. This is the PS1 Digital from Black Dog Technology, and it retails for $160 when it's in stock. Basically, this is an HDMI video output for your original PlayStation 1. This is from the makers of the DC Digital, which I covered in a previous episode, formerly known as the DC HDMI. This needs to be installed into your PlayStation. Sadly, not all models of the original PlayStation are compatible due to the changes that Sony made to the motherboard throughout the console's life. It can be used in the 5500 series and the 7000 series just as long as it has a PU18 motherboard. Mine came with a little plastic HDMI casing, but I think I lost it. However, you can 3D print your own, but the lack of one on mine isn't something that really bothers me. I've been told that this is not an install that beginners should attempt themselves. My friend Bill did mine. No matter what, extreme care is needed when dealing with the flex cabling provided. Once installed, you can export your video in VGA, 480p, 960p, or 1080p, which is just 960p in a 1080p window, which is what I like personally. There's even a 1200p mode if you prefer. And boy oh boy is the video quality outstanding. You can call up the options by pressing and holding L2, R2, square and X, and then pressing start. I would think that just the shoulder buttons and select would do the trick. I always forget what buttons I have to press and hold. Plus, pressing the face buttons or start can make your game do undesirable things as you attempt to call up the menu. Anyway, here you can select your output resolution, and all of them are integer scaled so they look super sharp. Like I said, 1080p is my favorite, though 960p can give it more of a full screen effect if your TV can handle it at the cost of a bit of sharpness. In the advanced video settings, you can adjust a few different things with the color and gamma and all that stuff. You can also choose your deinterlacing options. I don't know why this option is red, but you can choose between bob and weave. Bob can be a bit flickery, but at least there's no combing artifacts during motion. Weave looks nicer on still screens, but it has nasty ass combing artifacts when interlaced things move. Ew, I can't even see how anyone would tolerate that. Well, maybe if you like things that are crappy. Both will cause a momentary disruption in the video signal when switching from 240p to 480i or the other way around. This is really only bad if you're trying to capture video, as it might break your file, but if you're just playing on a TV, then it's fast enough. If you put the clock adjust on anything except off, there's no interruption at all, but you're stuck with weave mode that gives you the combing artifacts during motion, even if you select bob. You also get screen tearing when clock adjust is set to anything but off, so I definitely recommend leaving it off. Sadly, there's no adaptive deinterlacing option here. I really hope they can add that in the future. There's also an HQX option, which is supposed to smooth stuff out when you turn it on, but honestly, I can't really tell much of a difference when it's on or off. It's a very light application of HQX. In the scaler setting, you can choose how tall and wide you want your image, and this is all resolution dependent. You see, different games run at different resolutions, so you can set this in specific ways for each resolution. You'll see some information about the game you're currently playing and its resolution near the bottom. You can also enable scanline since this is an HDMI device, and all retro-related devices with HDMI need to incorporate scanlines. It quite literally is an unwritten rule. The lower the number, the darker your black lines are going to be. They look pretty good, I suppose, if you like this sort of thing. You also have a selection of fonts that you can choose from. Lastly, you can set up Wi-Fi so you can check for firmware updates. Once you do that, the process is a bit weird, but fortunately straightforward. First, you need to check if there's new firmware. If there is, then you download it. After that, you flash it. These are all their own individual steps. Well, that's it for the features. Check out some of this game footage. It looks fantastic. Yeah, some PlayStation games have some dithering. It's quite noticeable here. That's okay though, because remember, dithering is only bad when Sega does it. It gets a pass everywhere else. Anyway, I love how colorful and sharp everything is. Of course, the audio is treated great as well, and it sounds, well, great. Like the Dreamcast Digital, I find myself wanting to play the system more often after having this installed. It's not cheap, but for someone like me, it's absolutely worth it. It also future-proofs your system until they get rid of HDMI and come up with something else that's not even compatible, which will happen, by the way. Okay, so this next product is in fact plug and play. Now, I reviewed a product very similar to this in the past, but the company who makes it, Terra Onion, has decided to give this popular product an upgrade. Anyway, let's take a look. Here is the Super HD System 3 Pro from Terra Onion. This is a $275 adapter that fits on the back of your PC Engine console and lets you be an evil criminal and play illegal ROM files, even CD images. It can work on a TurboGrafx-16, but it's not officially supported, maybe because it's a rather tight fit? Back in late 2018, I talked about the Super SD System 3 in episode 228, Modern Accessories for Retro Gaming Volume 2, which basically does the same thing and is about $60 cheaper. I love it, and I've used it a ton over the years. This is the updated version with new features. Is it worth it? First of all, you can see they use the same exact case design, only now it's blue. That's all fine and good, but I really wish they would have updated around where the SD card goes. It's almost impossible to insert or remove the SD card unless you have really gross long fingernails. Why is this so indented in there? Seriously, what were they thinking? Anyway, beyond that, this updated device adds an HDMI output, fully digital video that's even applied to the RGB output so you won't get any jail bars or noise, and some other features I'll get into shortly. The main menu has been redesigned with different graphics, and you can choose from one of 4 different themes. It defaults to the list view, which I prefer, and it works well, but if you download a big old database from Terra Onion, you can also enable cover view mode. Most games actually have covers. This is very quick to sift through, but very few games are on screen at any given time due to the size of the thumbnails. Also, the thumbnails are almost unrecognizable since they're all so garbled. But it's here if you like it. This device features a Genesis 2 style AV output, fully reconstructed from the console's own digital video, which means there are no jail bars. I didn't have any jail bars in my SSDS3 from 2018, but I also had a Voltar board added into mine. I'm not 100% sure how the video is being handled here, as the PC Engine doesn't output true digital video in the traditional sense. Once I heard that this can play Super Graphics games without a Super Graphics, and I'll get to that feature in a bit, I knew that this unit was running cores on an FPGA. From what I can tell, at least some of the PC Engine's own video is being created via an FPGA core. It's not like the PS1 or Dreamcast digital, where it's grabbing digital video before it's converted to analog. For example, one time I reset Bonk's Adventure using Select and Run, and the title screen came up completely garbled. This tells me that it's using at least a partial FPGA implementation of the console, but on real hardware. I'm certainly not trying to say that this is a bad thing, but if authenticity is your thing, this is probably not for you. Anyway, initially, this analog output did not like the HD RetroVision cables at all. There are 2 analog video brightness options, normal and reduced. It's either way too bright or way too dark, no matter the position of the switch on the HD RetroVision cables. Fortunately, a recent firmware added a 3rd option which has the proper brightness values, and it looks great. I found that this setting achieves basically the same quality as my SSDS3 from 2018. Unfortunately, this scene in Startling Odyssey 2 is still missing the extra gradient in the sky, which normally is only barely visible in RGB, but absolutely there in composite. I mean, you could just barely see it here. This is because the PC Engine's RGB uses a linear scale, so a couple of the colors are perceptually a bit different than in composite. That's where the custom palettes come in. This one was made for the Mister, and it can be used here just as long as you rename the file with the .pal extension. Create a SYS folder on the root of your card, create a palettes folder inside of that, and put the .pal file inside that. Then go into the video options and the color table and select it. It works great, as you can see the extra sky gradient is here. This is awesome. Finally, the correct composite colors in RGB quality. The HDMI video outputs at either 720p or 480p. Not sure why you'd ever want 480p, but it's there. In HDMI mode, there's about 1 frame of video lag unless you select a 480p unbuffered mode. Oh, and you can't use the HDMI and the analog output at the same time. So, sorry streamers, this isn't a good solution for playing on your CRT with no lag while the HDMI goes into your OBS or whatever. Still, the HDMI video looks good for 720p. However, it slightly stretches most games to ensure sharp scaling. You can enable the smooth scaling mode in the menu, and this will maintain a more proper aspect ratio, but it's a little bit blurry. HDMI can also have custom palettes assigned. Hey, look at that! The sky here has the extra gradient. Nice! There's no need to adjust the brightness on the HDMI output, as it's right on the money. There are also scan lines, which of course are only available in HDMI mode. The fixed option at about 65% looks pretty good to me. There's also the adaptive mode where the brightness setting has no effect. Basically, this means that the dark lines are not visible in brighter areas of the image, making it a bit more like a real CRT. Not bad. The sound level defaults to a volume level of 50% for the analog output in the menu, and you're going to want to crank both of these up. With both at 100, the volume is still about 4 decibels lower than my TurboGrafx CD. Some people will say that the CD volume should be around 70 or 80, while the PCE sound should be 90 or 100. Honestly, that just makes the CD sound even quieter. With both at 100, the sound mixing seems to be the same as my TurboGrafx CD unit, only a bit quieter. The HDMI output doesn't have any of the volume issues, and there's an experimental option that lets you output the sound via HDMI and the video through RGB. What's more is that this device will let you play SuperGrafx games even if you're not using a SuperGrafx. Basically, the FPGA inside creates the extra memory and extra VDP that the SuperGrafx offers. Most games work fine, but Daimakai Mura, aka Ghouls and Ghosts, runs a little bit jerkier than the game does on a real SuperGrafx. Not that the real game running on real hardware was the epitome of smooth scrolling to begin with. There's also this small vertical line on the right side of the screen in Granzor and also in Battle Ace that aren't there when using a real SuperGrafx. None of the other SuperGrafx games seem to have this issue. Oh, and if you have the SHD S3 Pro hooked up to a SuperGrafx, you can't use your SuperGrafx's own power to run your SuperGrafx games. You must use the FPGA implementation. In fact, if you have the SuperGrafx switch enabled on the hardware and try to play Ghouls and Ghosts, you get this glitchy mess. You have to turn the console back to PC Engine mode to run the game properly. Apparently, the second VDP is not wired to the external digital video pins on the back of the SuperGrafx, and they only send out the VDPs before the mixing occurs. That sucks. I did have a bit of fun though, plugging in an RF cable into my TurboGrafx 16 to see what it's doing during SuperGrafx games. Sorry for the quality, but like I said, it's RF. Here in Ghouls and Ghosts, it's doing the foreground and a few of the sprites, whereas the rest would be filled in by the SuperGrafx's additional hardware. Or here in Granzor, the background is completely missing. I was really curious about the two Darius games though. In Darius Alpha, the entire boss is handled by the SuperGrafx as a background layer, as you can't see him here. In Darius Plus, the shots you fire are handled by the SuperGrafx, which will result in less flicker in the game. So there we go, now we know what the SuperGrafx does in those two games that a lot of people doubted even used the console in any way. Oh, and as I mentioned, this unit also allows you to play CD games, even arcade card CDs, without any actual CD drive. It works great! Everything seems brisker than real hardware for sure. However, I noticed that games with full motion video like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective quickly lose sync in any FMV segment. Apparently, this is a known issue.
It's irresponsible of the Times to play upon people's superstitions. Ah!
I think the problem here is that the video is just running too fast for the audio, as the SHD S3 Pro doesn't have the constant pauses in the video that the real hardware has. There are a few other games with known issues as well. There's also this button on the back of the unit. If you tap it, it resets your game. If you hold it for 3 seconds, it resets back to the menu. You can also do this with the controller. Holding select and run for more than 3 seconds will reset you back to the menu. Lastly, this can use cores for other consoles, like the NES. That's right, you can play NES or whatever games on your TurboGrafx or PC Engine. However, there aren't any cores available yet, so I can't show you this feature. Overall, this is a really cool device if you don't already have an SSD S3. I think that a lot of people will like the HDMI option, but will probably wish for more than 720p. I don't care much about the HDMI myself for that very reason. But I really do like the custom palette feature that lets me experience the intended colors in RGB quality. However, when it comes to the SuperGrafx games, I'll be using the old SSD S3 from 2018 since it lets me have a more accurate experience. I've got 2 more things to show you today, both of them for the original PlayStation. You know, now I've spent more money on cool new things for the PlayStation than I did on the console at launch. Yikes. Not to mention buying another PlayStation so I could have one that's compatible with all of these new things. Anyway, check these out. This is the X-Station optical drive replacement from Rama. This currently retails for $99 US. And it's exactly that. It replaces your old optical drive which reads CDs and allows you to use a micro SD card to load and run games. Of course, you only want to do this if you're an evil criminal like myself. If you've ever had to turn your PlayStation on its side or upside down to get the disc to read correctly like I have, then this is for you. Like the PS1 digital, the X-Station doesn't work with every model PlayStation. It supports the 1000 series, the 5000 series, and some of the 7000 series as long as it has a PU18 motherboard. This also needs to be installed, but fortunately it's not as complex as the PS1 digital install. My friend Bill also did this one for me when he did the PS1 digital install. You can organize the files into folders on your SD card in any way you want. Each game must be a folder of its own containing the proper bin and queue files. It can also read a few other disk image formats. Each folder represents a single disc in multi-disc games. At first, I didn't care for how the games were displayed, as the folders were ignored and everything was just put out in the open on the same page in the X-Station's loader screen here. It also didn't recognize custom file names, so I couldn't tell the difference between these two versions of Castlevania Chronicles that I have. One of them has the dithering removed, but you'd never know because it's not reading my file name. They look exactly the same. Fortunately, the loader firmware was updated several months back. Now it supports folder-based browsing, which I much prefer. And look, now it recognizes the way I named each file. Excellent, thank you. Browsing through the list of games is quick and easy. You can scroll slowly with the D-pad, or you can jump to the next or previous page with the L1 or R1 buttons. There are only a few options here, like the look of the loader, which gives you a couple of different choices. You can also play a little game of Tetris if you look at the credits, which is kind of cool. Highlighting a game and pressing X opens the folder and lets you choose the data track. Pressing X here launches the game. I would eventually like to be able to skip this step and just launch it from outside of the folder. If you don't browse the list in folder view, then this step is skipped. The game boots up and, well, I've got to tell you, I found no incompatible games yet. In fact, the X-Station is supposed to be fully compatible with the entire PlayStation library. The games don't really load much faster than real hardware, if any faster at all. Though if your PlayStation is really old, then it probably would be noticeably faster as your optical drive would be pretty worn down. Switching gears slightly for a second here, I noticed that the optical drive replacement on the 3DO not only loads much faster on Road Rash here, but it's also much more responsive in the menus. Before, it would be really slow to go from one option to the other. You can hear the length of time between the click and when the screen or option changes, for example. On the X-Station, Road Rash is just as slow as it always was, unfortunately. I wish it would load faster, but I'm wondering if that would break compatibility with a lot of games. Maybe there could be a toggle that people could enable if they wanted. But it works well, and it even lets you run games from other regions without having a mod chip installed. Remember mod chips? If you have a PS1 digital installed, you can use its menu to reset to the X-Station loader screen. This is a good replacement for the optical drives, though I do recommend keeping a PlayStation around that can read discs so you can use your old collection. I think I'm safe. In the end, I absolutely do recommend the X-Station.
Thunder Ring!
The final product I'd like to cover today is the Memcard Pro from 8-Bit Mods. Wow, a memory card. Not very exciting, right? That's what I initially thought. So, what does your $70 US get you? Well, this accepts a micro SD card, so as you can imagine, you get unlimited storage. That didn't sound very special. Let me try again. There we go, much better. There is no way you're gonna fill this thing up, even with a tiny 1GB SD card. There are 2 buttons on the top of the unit which let you cycle through pages. Each page is a memory card which holds 15 blocks. There's also an OLED screen on the card because, of course, every memory card needs an OLED screen and a powerful FPGA running the thing. The screen will show you the name of the game you're running just in case you forget. Hey, it happens. The cool thing is that if you have an X station or some other optical drive replacement installed, it can automatically cycle to the correct memory card as the game loads and create a new memory card every time you start a new game for the first time. Each game gets 8 .mcd files. Each of these .mcd files is its own 15-block memory card. So yeah, you're not going to be running out of space. I really like how everything is automatic with the X station installed. Transferring my old game saves over to this was kind of a pain in the ass though, as it doesn't work exactly like a real memory card. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. What you need to do is go into the memory card utility screen on your PlayStation. Copy all the files over from your real memory card onto the Memcard Pro, but be sure to only do one game at a time. This creates a generic card on the Memcard Pro, which you'll have to rename to the proper catalog number so that the Memcard Pro knows which game it is. You can create an empty text file with the name of the game inside of the folder so that you know. I wish this was an easier process, but alas, it currently is not. This thing works with all PlayStation 1 models. It also works with the PlayStation 2, but of course only with PlayStation 1 games. However, it does not work with the PS2 Slim for whatever reason. It also doesn't work with the memory card adapter for the PS3. This could all change in the future, or maybe it won't. I really don't know, because I'm stuck here in the present. Actually, I'm stuck in the past from everyone's point of view now. Help! One cool thing is the web interface you can set up over Wi-Fi. Here, you can change the settings and access all of the games on your card in your web browser. You can also adjust some settings like the OLED brightness or do a firmware update if one is available. You can download your saves from here as well if you want, but I prefer to deal with them using the SD card. Overall, I like this product a lot more than I thought I would. Granted, I say that after I've transferred all of my old saves over. I wasn't loving it while I was doing that slow and laborious process, but fortunately I didn't have a ton of memory cards. At least now all of my Raiden saves from back when the PlayStation console launched are safe forever. And my other saves too, I guess. Well, there you go. Those are some new and newish products that are available. Well, at least occasionally available. Now, there's always a limit to how far anyone really wants to get into this retro stuff, so what may be good for me may not be a fit for you. Still, I figured you enjoy hearing about these products anyway. So, what do you think? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSag. Why yes, the end of an episode. Where do you expect me to perform like a monkey for your amusement? Well, no more. I demand to be treated for what I am, and that is a master thespian. I am tired of speaking with a fake American accent to appeal to you commoners, when my real accent is whatever this is. And now, I shall recite some Shakespeare for your amazement. O PlayStation, O PlayStation, wherefore art thou, PlayStation? HDMI suits you. Your colors are so true. Your memory card slot is so wide. I wonder what's inside. X Station. That's it. The end.